A storm appears to be brewing around the 77th World Health Assembly, which is scheduled to begin in Geneva, Switzerland on Monday, May the 27th, running through June the 1st, 2024. The theme of this installment is All for Health, Health for All. A series of strategic roundtables have been planned, and during the sessions, delegates, partner agencies, representatives of civil society, and WHO experts are expected to discuss current and future priorities for public health issues of global importance. However, a growing lack of consensus on specified legal procedure is threatening to derail the purpose of the assembly. We are now being joined for a chat by two Nigerian lawyers, Sonnie Ekwowusi and Mary Ekemezie, who are both with us in the studio. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you very much. When you have two lawyers,
yes, it's about to get quite steamy in here. Yes, but let's talk about this Pan-Africa endemic and pandemic working group that has called for the postponement of the votes for the draft of the WHO pandemic agreement and the amendments to the IHR. Can you explain the legal basis for this request and the implications for the Assembly's proceedings?
Yes, because the Pan-African working group, has called for a postponement because there's lack of consensus. You know, the many African countries are not being carried along about this, about the theme and also the pandemic treaty. They are saying, look, if you're talking about pandemic treaty, you need to explain what it's all about, and the actual text of the treaty are well ahead of time so that countries who are going to attend the World Health Assembly will know what they are going to vote for. That has not been done. In fact, yesterday, something happened because many of the World Health Organization Assembly members are not in agreement with the documents, which means that from Monday, there's not going to be consensus. I don't know whether the assembly is going to be postponed because there's no consensus. People have not even seen the documents. You are going to vote on a document, and you are not allowed to access this document and know what you are going to vote for. So that is the problem. And you know, when you talk about pandemic, it means that there's going to be another pandemic coming. You know, we have had COVID pandemic, and it was not serious. It was very serious because, you know, there was a lockdown. We were not allowed to go out and all that. So people are saying, look, if you are, foreseeing another pandemic, foreseeing means that, like you rightly say, storm is brewing, which means that they are going to concoct another pandemic. Concoct in the sense that it's not going to be natural, So which means they are already foreseeing there's going to be another pandemic. And they are talking about
a pandemic?
Yes. I mean, in fact, we are told that the COVID-19, we're not being told that, it was put together by Israel or by... Anyway, this is not a conspiracy theory. But if they are discussing pandemic treaty, if they are discussing pandemic treaty, it means that they are looking forward for another one. Anyway, what we are concerned is that the content of that treaty, that people are saying, look, it contains so many obnoxious clauses that...
So I just want to confirm, you're saying that you believe that the COVID was a conspiracy
that
was put forward.
We are not discussing COVID now, but we are saying that the WHO... pandemic is going to come.
Can I ask if you agree with this?
I think that I would just rather focus on what the issue with this amendment is. And there are two issues. The first is that what this, like he rightly said, the law that set up this WHO or the World Health Assembly requires it to give us 4 months notice of the final draft of the document. So there's at the very minimum 4 months. So persons have the chance to see what is in this document. That hasn't happened. What has happened, however, is that it's a draft. It is not final. And amendments are being made, and they haven't adhered to that 4 months minimum that the law requires. And that's the first problem. How are you stampeding us? What is in this document? Secondly, the requirement. So in 2022, there was some sort of amendment that happened that didn't follow the law. And what amendment sought to do in 2022, and it didn't follow the law again that set up the World Health Assembly, was that it sought to reduce. So the way the regional draft, which has been governing the world up until before this illegal amendment in 2022 happened, the countries had 24 months. No, they had 18 months from when a new amendment was proposed to opt out. That was reduced without following the process to 10 months. Then there was a 24-month period before it became binding unless a country again opted out. That was reduced to 12 months. Now, given a government is very busy. Health is very important, but a government is also very busy. And so reducing those timelines without following due process is a problem. So we're battling with two processes that haven't been followed, and then now you're bringing a draft that haven't even complied with the minimum 4 months, and you're trying to stampede countries into signing it. The second concern, again, that the Pan-African Pandemic Group is concerned about is saying, look, in Africa, we did fantastically well with COVID. And so at this particular proposals you're bringing, that you want to be a global response, as we saw, your global response didn't quite work in the COVID pandemic. So why exactly do you want to, if it's not a power grab, which is a concern, we think it's a power grab, this is some form of new colonization, because if you do agree to this, and we don't, it's meant to give the current drafts that we've seen, which is, I hope it is the final draft that they're going to consider at this assembly, allows the unelected officials to take decisions that are binding on a country without reference to us. So all of those checks and balances that the initial regulations had been wiped away. That is at the heart of our concern.
Yeah.
That is at the heart of our concern.
Okay, so given that this proposed amendments to the IHR were only released, I think, mid-April 2024, way past that January 27 deadline, what are the legal consequences if these amendments are tabled and voted during the assembly? And in the context of these, procedural issues, what advice would you give to the Nigerian delegates who would be attending the 77th World Health Assembly to effectively advocate for this procedural integrity and equitable outcomes?
What I would say is, please do not vote on it. Let's all abstain. Let's insist that the proper thing be done. There is no reason why we can't convene another General Assembly. Give us notice now. Without the 4 months, like countries have a chance to look at what you're proposing, and then let's come back. There is no particular hurry. Unless there is some sinister agenda we're not aware of, there is no reason why we can reconvene this assembly. There's no reason why. And so absolutely what we're asking the government to do is to abstain and just make it very clear we're not interested in this. This doesn't represent our interests. We need to back out. And in particular for Africans, because we did very well in this past. So if they want to learn, they should take a cue from us. What worked for us?
Yeah, so, just going off of that, we did much better than there was projected for us. Much better during COVID. Yeah. However, we did see during that global pandemic that there was not an equitable distribution of vaccines and medicines and equipment. It went mostly, first, of course, to the West before we were able to access vaccines here in Africa. Now, do you think that this is a critical issue going forward if they're trying to plan for pandemics? Do you think that us actually having access to proper medication and our hands being tied, as you said, do you think you've described it as neocolonialism, but do you think that this is a possible issue that, is covered by this?
Well, so to be honest, right, and the jury is out. And on this vaccine issue, I will speak to it. What we had was an experimental vaccine. And that was part of the concerns, again, of the Pan-African group. Understandably, we're dealing with a new disease we're not quite sure how to deal with. We're racing against time, but it was still an experimental vaccine. So it made no sense to mandate it. Particularly, and there were various concerns. Now, in Florida, and I always like to use Florida, at least in the US, so you can't say it's one African countries. They didn't follow all of those prescribed mandates by WHO. They did very well because they followed procedure. How are you mandating an experimental verse? It was experimental. If you said, oh, well, we have a problem, please take it, it makes sense. People lost their jobs. People's livelihoods were destroyed. People didn't see their loved ones because of an experimental vaccine. And then now, AstraZeneca has been pulled in the Europe ride. New York, the Cuomo brothers are telling us about their in the UK. And that is part of what we are concerned about, again, back to this treaty. What they want to do is to be able to say, you must use it and it is final. And we have a problem with that. Because you've caused a lot of damage. There's lots of stories that were suppressed during that time about vaccine damage, which is now, why are we hearing the story now when at that time? So,
but do you think that this is trying to prevent that sort of situation from happening again by planning ahead?
No. They say it is trying to prevent, and I'm saying that even though I agree that there has to be some level of collaboration, you must take into cognizance each country's unique story. We did well with Ebola. We did well with COVID. And even in Nigeria, the response differed from region to region, even in Nigeria. And the stories were different. And so wanting to prescribe a one-size-fits-all for everybody by elected officials who are not even accountable to us. They are saying outsource the powers because we are the experts. I don't disagree that they are experts. I'm just saying that looking at the last pandemic and your response, I think that allowing us to have a framework that allows countries to do what is best for them works best.
Can I just quickly confirm? I'm so sorry. Can I just quickly confirm? You're both lawyers, not medical professionals.
Yes, we are.
But talking about the issue of, sovereignty, the issue of sovereignty of nations. That when you do these things, you're undermining the sovereignty of different countries or different. Granted, World Health Organization is a global health body that has been advising and has been improving health all over the world. But when you have to deal with these matters, you have to carry all the countries along in terms of, agreeing on the draft document, on what they are going to discuss and all that. So the issue of sovereignty is very important. We're independent countries in Africa. And oftentimes they treat us like as if we're not independent. That's what she mentioned, neocolonialism. I know you have bodies deciding things for us without our input and without our unique philosophical and cultural values. These things are in place. You have to take that into consideration because every country is unique.
Yeah.
So you have to take
that you say that because my next question to you was actually how Nigeria, of course, and other African countries can use their collective voice at the assembly to advocate for a more transparent and inclusive process, especially in the adaptation of international, health regulations.
But that's what is very important, that there should be openness, there should be transparency in the whole thing. Right now it's shrouded in secrecy and obscurity. We want to see that, look, each country will fight these things using their unique circumstances and unique values and unique culture to fight this. It works very well. You know that even when you talk about vaccine, we have our INIFE, in the past, there used to be a vaccine institution there, that we have our own unique vaccine, and it has worked in the past. So when you talk about vaccine, you don't impose something that will not work for us, and you want everybody to take that. So Nigerian representative on Monday should try to say, look, we have not looked at this document. Give us time, to look at the document before we are calling us to vote on it, so we can have opportunity
by voting, do you think that, we have a voice? Like, do you think that this is a prescription instead of a mandate?
No, of course we have a voice. The Pan-African group have all the African countries, there has been even non-African countries like Japan. There was a demonstration in Japan against this World Health Assembly starting on Monday, saying, look, what are they going to vote on? They have not clearly looked at. So, apart from African countries, many countries in the world are against what is happening. And that's why I said yesterday, we have gotten a deal like that to say that the countries are divided, on it. So, which means on Monday, we don't know what's going to happen. Likely that it's going to be postponed. And if there's going to be any vote, Nigeria is going to vote no to Should. They should vote.
Yeah, you believe that they should.
They should vote no.
You believe that they should.
Absolutely.
All right, then I wonder if the African Union is going to maybe have a unified voice.
I think that they should.
But thank you so much. This has been a very interesting conversation. Sonnie Ekwowusi and Mary Ekemezie, both lawyers, in the studio with us now.